Sure, you're young. Andre's young. A handheld.
Every time you're going to be on.
Okay. So, Roland, you get launch us into this one, huh?
This is our last full session. It's probably the most important one. It's the one that addresses the future. We don't even want to really allocate specific time. We really want to make this open-ended in as far as the format is concerned. And the topic would be a very simple one: the future of the industry, the future of the technology, the future of the business. Not everybody agreed with me, but I always felt that maybe the key players in determining where this is going, where this is heading, are not necessarily the consumers, the skydivers or the tunnel flyers, are not even the operators necessarily. If there are any paradigms to be changed, I mean, it starts right at this level. The manufacturers, the ones who come up with the new concepts, the new ideas in terms of technology, in terms of the hardware, and everything else, in my opinion at least, evolves from there. And we would like to do this in a fairly loose form, where we would say starts. I could look at at Eric, and Eric would say, well, I'm ready to take that ball and go with it. What would be your prediction if this is ever going to happen again, let's say in 2 years' time? What will have happened in the 2 years between now and then?
Well, 2 years. 2 years is a very short time. I think we have to look a bit further into the future, because if you plan a project now, it's probably not realized in 2 years from now. But let's say what we see, and I think most people will agree that we see much more variation in terms of sizes. That's already happening right now. We see very small tunnels in order to reduce cost, but we also see the completely opposite, where we see very huge tunnels built in the Middle East. A topic that I didn't hear these days is actually the idea of having multiple tunnels into one building, because as Actiflow we actually made a design of the tunnel in Utrecht in the Netherlands, which is the first tunnel in Europe, or the first facility to have two tunnels in one building. And I think this concept only has advantages, basically, because we were talking about costs earlier today, and if you realize two tunnels into one building, you build cheaper, at least per tunnel. You have much more flexibility in planning of personnel and in planning of also customers coming. You can probably negotiate better energy rates to buy energy, and you could you are more flexible in personnel also. You can share personnel over two tunnels. So in my opinion, it really has a lot of benefits, and I don't understand why there are not more places where they combine two tunnels. At least if the market's there, if there are enough people with enough purchasing power at least, but I think that concept can be interesting.
Would anyone like to pick up on that comment? Simon?
Yeah, we have three. So Orlando, where we had a single tunnel, the first original tunnel. We went into International Drive and put a twin tunnel there. That was quite interesting. Again, you're right, on peak times it's really efficient. You have to have a high volume place to do that. Mirdif Mall was the first one in Dubai. They have twin tens, and they've been there for quite a while. It's not the most popular mall in Dubai. And then in China, there's one in Chongqing with twin tunnels, but they're slightly distant from one another. I do agree, if you're in a really busy place, it's a great idea. And there are definitely some synergies in doing that.
Yeah. I can also. I'm not a skydiver myself, but I could also imagine that it opens up also new ways for competition. You could actually have two people skydiving or body flying at the same time, doing a routine, doing a, let's say, head-to-head competition where you have a winner and a loser. So it might also open up new things.
I will say the world's most expensive wind tunnel failure was a twin tunnel.
Yeah, I know.
That was in San Diego.
Yeah.
It's now a really nice homeless shelter, and it cost the owner 45 million.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh well. Who would like to follow on? We can go in order. Jan, the question initially was the broad one of where do we see the market evolving? How do we see things going forward? And where do you see things over the next couple of years?
Actually, I don't know if I'm the right visionary, but as I can see now, the audience or the clients of the wind tunnel business, there are generally three groups, and each of these groups has a bit different requirements. So there is a general public. For them, it's important not to be that expensive, and I think it will be. I mean, the trend to create maybe smaller wind tunnels, which will be more affordable. Then there is the second group of the people who are the spot flyers and these profit flyers who are looking for, of course, also cheapest, but a bit bigger size and high quality of the flow. And this is probably the future of maybe other improvements of this technology generally. And then there is a third part, which are the militaries, which has slightly different requirements as well. So I think that the market maybe will be focused on three different focuses, but in general, I don't see that there will be a big difference in the technology finally, because there is just the wind which flows around.
So it will be driven more by the market rather than by the tech
I think,
aspects, and that's most people agree on that. Ivar, you mentioned, I know we're going in order around here. You were talking a lot about small tunnels the other day, but I don't want to get you into that particular space, but where do you see the market evolving?
I think maybe my company is the one of few who are doing whole range of different tunnels, yeah. And I think I disagree with that manufacturers are putting up the trend, yeah. I would say the buyers are putting the trend, yeah. And in my experience, I had a couple cases when actually the buyer invented new things, yeah. For instance, we were building one tunnel for a Sheikh of Bahrain, and he said, "Oh, I want to have the office on the top of the building. Why don't you make the door for me to jump in, yeah?" And we came up with this idea of base jumping in a tunnel, yeah. And actually, the Sheikh invented that, yeah. We just put a credit for us, yeah. So that's one of the things. And right now we are working with very different industries. Like, let's say in my portfolio, there is a big chunk of show business people, you know, and the requirements are way different than what you people's need, yeah. For example, they need something to be hidden under this stage, yeah? So that's another requirement. You need to make it really compact, really small, yeah? And when you do something like that, then you are seeing some new advancements in this technology, and you can implement the same knowledge from a show business back to the skydiving business, yeah? So I would say it's you know, in my case at least, the future will be defined by experiences we are getting from different industries, yeah. Just to repeat, military industry, film industry, show business industry, skydivers, kids, all of them are different, yeah. So what I think we need to please all of them, and also don't forget about investors, yeah. We have to think what they want, and they obviously want to get their money back. They want to make profits, yeah. So, you know, that's what I see.
We'll keep moving along, Alberto. We'll come back to you, Anton, and we'll get the rest of the panel. Simon, we'll skip over you first time through because I know you have some quite ample things to say. So, Alberto.
Okay, I think I would like to see that the tunnels in the future are safer, and it's all our responsibility. Then instead of trying to avoid and put cost down to make the tunnel cheaper, we actually invest a little bit to make this tunnel safer. Me, myself, being part of tunnel instructor, I guess I'm a little bit obsessed with safety. Like Simon said, I was an adrenaline seeker when I was young. I did all kind of things, base jumping, flying planes, anything you could imagine. And when you get older, you start thinking, wait a minute, this is a business. It has to be something 100% safe, because if someone hurts themselves, it's not going to be good for the sport or anything. There is something called this base door, which people think is a lot of fun, and we were talking about it yesterday, which I think is the most dangerous thing in the world for this kind of business. Like, I imagine myself in whatever, 20 meters high, and I'm jumping into a tunnel that suddenly switches off. I don't care if I have carbon fiber blades or metal blades, it doesn't matter. I'm going to hurt myself, and probably I'm going to die. So us, as part of the tunnel instructor organization, when people want to walk in and say, oh, we want to be part, there's certain limitations. And I hope in the future the tunnels are safer for the sake of everyone, because if people start hurting themselves on them, it's not going to be, it's my opinion, don't get upset. You're gonna hit me back on that. But anyway, I think obviously the future comes with the smaller tunnels. We build a lot of big tunnels, like Simon was saying, there's a certain amount of skydivers, and they're not growing at the speed of the tunnels are growing. So there is a lot of locations that are much smaller with smaller populations, and then in those places you can make investments of 2.5 million euros, whatever dollars, and put these small tunnels, and a lot of, or mainly the fun flyers will fly on them. So I think the future hopefully will be safer. I think it will be with the smaller tunnels, and if I look even in a longer time, in 40 years' time, I think probably in 40 years' time, tunnels will be pretty boring. There will be something else invented, like, I don't know, like if you were in the moon, you will walk into a room and you will be floating. But I think for the next 30 years, till we get to those 40, I think in 40 years, people will invent something completely new to wind tunnels, and we will move on to something else.
You mentioned, because I was just talking to someone this morning, you mentioned smaller tunnels and safety. But I understand there are specific safety challenges for smaller tunnels.
Well,
I mean, because they're smaller doesn't mean there's less risk, is what I'm saying.
No, I mean, basically, if you build a big tunnel, the smaller it's pretty much, you can scale it. It's not as simple as that. But as long as if you have a diffuser that diffuses the air, if you have a soft net, there are certain things that most of the tunnels nowadays have. If you can implement all those things in the smaller tunnels, you're also keeping it safer. I think it's safer a smaller tunnel than a bigger tunnel for fun flyers, because you can control the people in a much easier way. Instead of having to run, I mean, in the big tunnels, which I can't wait to fly on it, I have to say, if there is an accident on the other side of the tunnel, you get the spotter to run and get it there, it's going to be hard. But on the small tunnels, the flyer is in there, so the spotter is like half meter. If there is a mistake, it's already catching it. So definitely, I think the smaller tunnels are safer, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, Andre, on the general question, you've had a chance to hear it, Anton, we will come back to you. What is your view on where things are going?
Should I just talk loud?
Sorry?
Well, you want this?
All right.
Yeah.
No, I don't care. I can talk loud.
No, put it.
They were recording
It's better.
Well, I do. Well, first of all, I have to explain that from the first day when I got introduced to tunnel flying, or okay, not from the first try, from the second try, about 8 years ago, straight away I became a believer that tunnel flying and, well, indoor skydiving, body flying, however you call it, it has actually a greater potential than any other aviation sport out there. But it does take a lot of development. The way I see it, we with body flying and indoor skydiving, we're pretty much where, I don't know, surfing was 100 years ago, right? It is a new element. It is a sport that involves, playing with an element, and it is cool. People love playing with elements, and it does have a potential to become super popular, but we're not there, not even halfway there. And there has been several questions addressed by, sport authorities, like what are we going to do, manufacturers and operators. And here the problem is that we as manufacturers, I mean, we do produce expensive machines. We have potential to, make them better, but still our abilities are a little bit limited. So all that we can do is provide better machines to the operators, because those are the ones who actually take the most amount of revenue. Because like our revenues, as our margins as manufacturers are a fracture of what operators get if they have a successful project, and this is what they're supposed to have building machines. So we as manufacturers, the only thing we can do, we can provide them safer tunnels. And here I completely agree with Alberto, and this is exactly what we're doing in Tunnel Tech. Like for the last year we had this conversation with tunnel instructor, and we're trying to, somehow ally to make the sport safer and actually to make machines safer, because I have to say that in many machines out there, a lot of machines out there, some basic safety features are just overlooked, or I don't know. I don't want to say neglected, my poor English, but I truly believe that some things should be reconsidered. Building machines, they would make them much safer. I guess you guys know, right? Anyway, safety, one thing. Energy efficiency that you had a discussion about in the previous session. I also would like to join here, because I do believe that we build most of energy efficient machines out there. And why it is important, even though it is a third line of expenses for the operators, I think operators have to change their business. Operators have to look on other industries where entertainment feeds sportsmen, and sportsmen are not a source of income anymore. I mean, it was fun. Okay, for 10 years it was fun. Good, you make your cut. But now you have to rethink it. Maybe if you, as operators, okay, first of all, I shouldn't be addressing it to you. I should be addressing it to you, because you are the biggest operator out there, right? So you have so much potential comparing to all those, 3-4 tunnels operators that we have out there. And you can do so much change to the sport and to the industry in general. So everybody agree on one fact, that the industry goes down. Like the entertainment revenues are going down. Like tunnels are not shooting through the roof like they were, 5-10 years ago. Right? And the problem is that we don't have anything in between the one-timers, not first-timers, one-timers, and the sportsmen, which we have just 1,000. So all these big brands that we want to come in, all this publicity, it comes with quantity. And quantity comes when people can refer themselves to the ones that they see. This is what makes sports popular. The connection person have between himself and the sport that he's looking at. If we're talking about MMA, well, everyone fought in school, didn't you? If we're talking about surfing, well, there is 35 million of surfers that started surfing, like that got lucky and that lived by the sea. And if we're talking about climbing, well, climbing has been popular long before we invented indoor skydiving, right? So there is a ton of people, or at least, climbing people walking the mountains. That's just enough for them, right? Anyway, for each of these sports, there is a ton of people that can connect. In our sport, no. So this is solely responsibility of the operators to fill up this gap between one-timers and sport flyers. And we as the manufacturers, well, we can make the tunnel time super cheap. How much does tunnel time cost in terms of energy? In our tunnels, 40 euros an hour, really? And we market it way more as the operators. So, I don't know. I think I'm pretty much done.
We'll come back. I don't want to leave Anton. We don't want to leave Anton hanging out over here, and then you come back and we'll kick it all off again. But your initial take on some of these comments, and then we'll go through. We'll let Simon take up
you wanted first to comment on what we've heard?
the ball. Yeah, yeah.
Then, in comment to what you said, I believe that wave surfing, if I remember the history correctly, took off in the 50s after that movie about that young girl. Am I correct? There was a move and there was a certain hype, correct? I forget her name. Yes, that's it.
Beach Boys.
That's it. That plus the music plus the invention of the plastic thruster was what sort of took off. So I suppose that's what you're looking for, or?
I mean, an indoor skydiving.
Yes. Is that what you mean? Because you said we're like surfing was in
well,
1920.
Surfing, the difference with surfing that any boy or a girl living by a sea, if he has nothing but a board, a plastic broken board, he can already go and start surfing.
Yeah.
Indoor skydiving, if you're a boy or a girl living by a tunnel and you found a suit in the trash bin next to the tunnel, you can wear the suit and sit next to the tunnel and keep watching people fly.
Yes, agreed. But then specifically, what did you mean when you said that we were like wave surfing were 100 years ago? That is 1920. What did you mean by that?
The level of popularity. Look, like all the sports that are involving playing with elements, they are popular. All of them. And all of them are popular. And I believe that playing with your body with an element of air is going to be crazy popular. 30 years from now, it will be like a gym if we do things right. And I don't know. This is my general idea, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Anton, also, if you could talk a bit more generically about the initial question, which was the future over the next couple of years.
Well, I mean, I represent a very small and a very new, call it even a fringe aspect of indoor skydiving. But if I am to comment on vertical wind tunnels, I would agree that small wind tunnels would seem, if not the way to go, but an interesting way to go, to make it cheap to have many of them and as a way into the sport, especially for kids.
Okay.
Now, Simon, you haven't had a chance to make any comments to respond to some of the things we've heard already, so let's turn things over to you, and then we can keep the ball rolling after that.
I kept a couple of notes during this thing. I've learned loads. Thank you, everybody, for that wisdom. And I used to do a lot of conferences in the radio industry, and I quite like these prediction sessions because it's quite good to nail a few things and decide what we may or may not do. And you asked for 2 years, which is a short time frame. I definitely think that, and I'll address some of the questions asked, Jill yesterday and Alberto yesterday and Andre today, etc. I think as an industry, we have to change a lot. And that'll start with things like the technology, safety and training, ASTM. We talked about Jan has been working on that with Strajona on the ASTM stuff. We've been working on it. And we will be seen as rides. As we become more popular, we get regulated. The indoor climbing industry is pretty regulated in the way that the health and safety, etc., is done. We will have to do that, and there will be regimes that go with that from, your morning engineering tests right through to ISO employment, and we will have to become regulated. And that really takes me to the point of govern or be governed. And if we don't decide to be self-governing, we will be governed. Someone will come along and say, this is an industry out of control, and it might start in one country, or it might start in a group of countries, and they will want to take control of us. And I don't think that's a healthy thing. I think for us to be self-governed, the scuba diving industry did it, and you look at PADI, who rose to the top of self-governance, and they deal with training and qualification. And Alberto asked me yesterday, he looked at me and said, why don't you do it? We have to do it. And we got to the point with a few tunnels who wanted to join IBA. and we had to pull out. And the reason that we pulled out is because if you're going to put safety and training in, there's no compromise. There's no pulling away from it. And if we were going to put that in somebody else's tunnel, where they thought of it as a guideline, or they thought of it as a voluntary thing, no, we'll take your training. No, we'll do safety meetings. But what are the consequences if they don't? I know the consequences in our tunnels and our franchisees if they don't. They will get a breach of contract. They would lose a license. If you're one of our AGM, one of our general managers, you couldn't expect to be in a job tomorrow if you're not running safety meetings, if you're not doing this stuff. There is consequence. And unfortunately, it's called policing by some people, but policing isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's for the good of the citizens. And when you're the owner, and you're the guy or the girl who ends up in jail because there's been an accident that was totally avoidable in your tunnel, you start thinking about it differently as an investor, as an owner, as a staff member, and as a customer. And we owe that to our people. We are a serious grown-up industry, and we cannot afford to injure people. Sure, when you fly, as we do with all the tunnel industry, 3-4 million people a year, there will be accidents, like trip accidents, just like walking down the street. And that's expected. And the health and safety executive around the world, they know that. But they're not going to see negligence and let us get away with it. The insurance industry will clamp down on us. We're getting our helmets rated. They tried to rate our jumpsuits, for goodness sake, in France. That's what will happen. It will be done to us if we don't do it ourselves. And us as manufacturers all have a big role to play in that, and us as operators have a big role to play in that. So I recommend we look at PADI. And so until the tunnels turn around and say, we'll take your systems and we'll abide by the system as you do with PADI, then we can't do everything together. The tunnels have to agree to be bound by it. It's not a fair weather program. It's for life. That's what you do. In the technology, I think we've got more efficiency to come. We've definitely got safety to come, but we've got more efficiency to come. We have more tier 2 and 3 markets. So the big markets, a lot of those have gone. There's still some. But the tier 2 and 3 markets, the grassroots, as I talk about, how we're getting into the small towns and villages, it is definitely going the small tunnels. That's more efficient, it's cheaper, and we can definitely do a lot more of that. It's battery technology, it's energy efficiency, and so I think we'll see more of that. But we have to bring a lot of safety into that as well. And small is really hard to make safe, partly because of positioning of the fans and ingestation and things like that. And I know how much Erodium have done on that and others, and we've definitely done a lot on it as well. That was the biggest thing to stop us going in that direction to begin with. Competition we spoke a lot about, and I think listening to Hagen was really interesting. Listening to Reinhardt was really interesting. We must listen outside of ourselves. We've got to get out the forest. And it's all about packaging, presentation, formats, getting the media interested in what we want to do. And a big point that Andre makes, it's about being relatable, being able to associate yourself with it. Everybody can associate themselves with all the sports that we've been talking about. But it's really hard to associate yourself with skydiving and indoor skydiving because you don't know what people are doing beyond the flight. You just don't have a clue. Even with skating, you think, I could do that. Well, probably not my case, but you think you can do that. You think you can drive a Formula One car. You think you can drive a rally car. You think you can throw a dart, hit a snooker ball. We can relate to all of those things, and we're a really hard sport to relate to. And then our training grounds are so expensive. As Andre said, you get an old board. It doesn't matter what it is. You can go jump in the sea. You get a skateboard. You put some wheels on it. Whatever they are, you can go do that stuff. The cost of practice is so expensive, and the cost of getting good is so expensive. And so if we can find ways of doing that, we had a thing where we did a third, a third, a third. We wanted to reduce the price of a tunnel by a third, the price of finance by a third, and the price of operation by a third. If we could reduce all of that, then we could bring indoor skydiving down to a much more manageable amount. All that stuff will hit insurance. And by the way, this room should look at what we charge for coaching. We are the most expensive coaching in the world. I don't know any coaching that charges $300 an hour. I mean, there are some, obviously, but that's the norm. $250, $300 an hour. Sure, it takes more than an hour. I get that.
But again, the reason for this is tunnel price. It's time.
No,
price.
this is the coaching on
Yes,
top of the
but
tunnel.
Why?
It comes
Why
from the
is it
skydiving
willing to
industry.
pay so much for coaching?
Because it's coming from the skydiving industry.
And because there isn't enough people.
Because,
Yeah.
well, yes, this is one side of things, but then there is another side of things. You're paying 5, 6, 700 for an hour. It's going to be 20% efficiency of what you get if you pay extra 300 for a coach, right? So, or 20%, 10% efficiency. That's why
He doesn't want you to talk.
I hate those things. This is the reason why coaches are so expensive. Like, if you look at Russia, where tunnel time dropped down like to 150 United States dollars in small tunnels, like coaches charge their $70, and then because nobody's gonna pay twice the flight time. Like, people would go fly for 2 hours instead of flying 1 hour with a coach. So, like, I'm sure that these two subjects are very much interconnected.
I think coaching is going to go down, and I don't even give it 5 years. Like, from when I started and I was a coach, I remember I was charging 300 euros an hour. So I worked in a tunnel for less than 6 months. That was my whole formation about the tunnel, and I was charging 300 euros an hour. And a doctor that spends 10 years studying gets an hour, what, 40? He's operating a person that could die, live or die, and he probably gets 40 euros an hour. There's something wrong here. Obviously, it's because there was very little tunnels and there was very few people, but I think eventually in I give it another 5 years, and the price of 1 hour of coaching shouldn't be more than 50 euros, because it doesn't make any sense.
So outside of coaching, because trust me, any tunnel operator can get into coaching and talk about that all day. Consolidation. I think our industry will consolidate, and you see that in all other industries. We will end up consolidating one way or the other, and it could be the manufacturers, and guess what? We talk together from time to time. It could be the operators. We've already bought some, and others will do the same, and there are tunnels for sale, so there will be consolidation within the industry, and that'll be an exciting time, and we'll see that. And my last prediction was really around the summit. And I said yesterday that, did anybody know why we were coming here? And there was a show of one. And I think the interesting thing is that we now know a lot more where we want to go because of the stuff that's been thrown on the table. So I think our next summit in 2 years' time, I think we'll deal much more with operations than we will just about competition. I think we did a lot of competition, and I think that'll sort of pale into insignificance compared to running tunnels. Sales and marketing will become a big part of this. It'll be, we'll be talking about how to become more efficient and run that. And I think the makeup of this will be different. I don't see the guys from Belarus or Royal Caribbean or any of our other purchasers here today. I see one or two operators who come from the skydiving industry. And so I think we'll see that. Sorry, Jill, I didn't answer your question either. You asked yesterday, why don't people bid for these events? And I think that's a two-way street as well. I think when the FAI make it more attractive to bid for, then it will become one of those things that we'll want to bid for. It's quite formulaic as to what we have to do when you bid for those things, and they're not particularly attractive to bid for. And other colleagues around the room were saying to me, actually, does it matter? Because there's so many tunnels running their own competitions, be it, Bedford, the fantastic Windor games, the stuff in the Middle East, that because they're doing their own stuff, a lot of competitors prefer to go to those, even though there's some glory, a little bit like Olympic glory in being the world champion. And then someone said, can anybody name the VFS current world champion or the dynamic four-way world champion at the moment? And none of us in the group could. And I know you could, Domi, but like you ask all... But you ask all of that. But the main thing was it wasn't necessarily that interesting that it had... And we have to make it, we have to build heroes and rock stars. But the rock stars are probably going to come out of the UFC kind of style than they are out of the World Championship kind of style. And so I see them running in parallel, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to run that. We just ran the nationals and we had to spend more on judges and travel and after parties than we did on anything else. And that was mandated by the NACs and FAI, etc. It's an obstacle.
If people do want to respond, we've got a mic here. So we do have Patrice.
And even
please.
The World Championships, they were subsidized as well. They had to be subsidized.
Well, this is several times that we are talking about rock stars, and I perfectly agree with that. But we have also to look outside the system. The rock star already exists outside. And in my career, I've been lucky enough to be in the system with a man named Nicolas Hulot, who was running a very famous TV show in France, Ushuaïa. At the end, he was a minister of the environment in the ministry. I know that you don't like to talk too much politics, but we have done a lot of things, and this was a rock star. It involved skydiving with us. He was a skydiver with us. When we have tried to do something with him, we said, okay, you want to be with us, you have to become a real skydiver. So, of course, I was doing CF, canopy formation. He went with us, he became a CF worker, and we went and built the pyramid over the pyramid of Cairo in the year of 1995. During this time, he was the rock star, and we became the rock star because he was with us, and we were very fortunate. We get sponsor, we get a lot of money because we are in connection. So if the tunnel and the outdoor as well are good enough with the products to attract also the other rock star, I know that other rock star already existing, but for other reasons, probably about their contract, about the fact we still have a view from the other which is a little bit scaring or whatever. But if we are good enough to attract other rock star, then we don't need to try to create our own rock star because we also can make them practicing indoor and outdoor. And this is also another issue. I'm afraid that we are a little bit too much centeredness and not looking enough outside. I mean, there is a lot of people, the synergy before. The synergy with the company, the team buildings, the coaching already exists. The synergy with also the other acrobatic sports, it's going to be very helpful for them to teach about, to learn how to feel their body exactly in the air, even if they have not the same feelings, of course, to increase their potential of the inner ear and all that. So rock stars are outside as well.
For sure.
Thank you for that. I would just like to pick up on something, though, that you raised as one of your comments, Simon. The first one, about creating a standard and a sort of safety standard or some standards across the business before it's imposed. You mentioned PADI, which comes from the scuba industry. If you were to think about how this could evolve and how it could be done, would you recommend like trying to follow the template of another industry, or would there be a need to bring together to have some sort of a working group? How would you see that evolving? Or would someone propose what those standards would be and then push them out there and then others would discuss?
So ASTM is a technical standard, and it's like a CE rating or whatever, they all get rated. And that work is well done. And I think Wayne is off to the ASTM conference next week. We've been part of that for a while, and I think it takes about 3 years before it will make its way around. But literally, every manufacturer here will not be able to sell a wind tunnel in most countries in the world after 3 years if they're not ASTM rated.
But how is that, I mean, how does that become an obligation? I mean,
It's
who's agreed?
It's exactly the same as if you, right now in France, if you wish to run a wind tunnel, you have to have rated helmets. And otherwise you are governed, and they'll come and close you down. And that's going to be all over Europe with helmets quite soon, and America. So that's why Cookie with their G4, it's now AFNOR rated. Manu gave us the rating number yesterday. And that will just extend, but that's going to extend now to the machine.
But is that an industry regulation, or is that an imposed regulation?
It's
That's what
imposed.
I'm saying.
That's
an
imposed.
imposed regulation. Okay. So is there a way to counterbalance that with something?
Yeah, be involved.
Self-regulation?
Be involved in the making of the regulation. That's why he's going to the conference next week.
Sorry,
And
Wayne.
that's-
Yeah,
and
it's
with
important to
our
have a comment from
technical
you on this,
guys.
yeah.
That's why
If you could
Jan's been talking to them. That's
Yeah, I think Simon's point there is about taking control, doing it ourselves before somebody else tells us what to do, and by coming together as a group, we can anticipate those problems. We can see what problems coming. Is like the helmet was a great example, where we spoke to Paul Mayer at Twinwoods quite a long time ago, and Paul said we should just do this ourselves. Let's not wait for a formal regulation. Let's just get on and do it. But at the time, it was we didn't have the ways of doing it. But it's any standard. We're going to get regulated, so let's do it. Let's anticipate it. Get out there and actually demonstrate. One of the things with ASTM is we fast-tracked it because we were able to demonstrate that we were already compliant in so many different areas, particularly the training and the safety side. And these are the people, Disney. We consult with Disney. We consult with Six Flags parks. They're the people that are giving us the guidance. And they were blown away by how far along the path our industry already was. So actually it's quite good to take control. So that standard is now going to fit our purposes. And that's the point. Let's make the standards that work for us.
With the helmets, we nearly ended either up with a motorbike type helmet in a wind tunnel, or with a skydiving helmet where they had to have a release. And that's where it was going until we managed to get stuck in there as an industry. Not iFly, but we as an industry got stuck in there. And again, with some help from the FFP. But it would have gone down the skydiving route if we weren't careful. So we have to go regulate ourselves.
I brought this up very briefly yesterday, and I would like to put a little bit more emphasis on it now. Obviously, when you say, it's iFly, but it's also industry. I mean, they initiated this process. It was published and widely published. I picked up on it somewhere online. And then I sent you, we didn't have all that much exchanges. I sent you a notification of this process being in progress right now. And did that interest you at all, or will you take part in this in the future, or how do you see this coming now? Yeah.
Well, again, we're very small and new, but if it's of any interest or benefit to the summit, we very much appreciated that information, and we've looked into this issue. Inventing a new sport with potential dangers is very scary to me personally. So we've spent a lot of time being super cautious, doing everything in very, very, very small incremental steps, documenting everything. Of course, with the machinery, the mechanical safety system, etc., but also with our training and safety program. So we're aiming for something very similar to what Mr. Ward is talking about. And for that reason, we thought it was fantastic to see this standardization process coming. So when you go to the conference, you would meet actually our technical director there, Dr. Peter Uran. He's coming there. So we're putting quite a lot of emphasis on this, and to us, it will be, well, call it not a protection, but it will be, we're new, we're so small, and suppose something happens. We're trying our really, really best to be as safe as we can. But like I said, we have mostly blank pages.
Maybe the question should also go to the other manufacturers. Yeah. Ivars, Jan, Eric, will you be there?
Well, first of all, I don't consider Actiflow as an actual manufacturer because we don't manufacture anything. We're basically a partner for most of the people here. I cannot answer your question directly, but of course we're also active in quite some other industries. We develop also products in the medical field, for example, and there, of course, you already have that. I mean, if you look at the procedures that we have to go through, also as a designer, to get a medical product on the market in the end, it takes quite some effort. But that doesn't. It's of course for the good of the customer in the end. So I can only say it's a good idea, but it will also change the way we work as designers or manufacturers. It will influence the way of documenting things, the way of looking at the product. So yeah.
Ivars, you're definitely a key player in the United States as well, because a lot of the work that's being done in the film industry is being done with your equipment. Will you be at the conference as well?
I'm not specialist in this ASTM standards, so I will not go myself, but we do have the department who is taking care of safety. There is a bunch of people focusing on that, yeah. And I think in my experience, we have learned a big lesson from big players. And again, I can mention Disney. And we spent 1 week every day talking about different ways how to die. Yeah. So and it's called hazard analysis in that company. Yeah. So people are actually taking very seriously all the possible accidents which might happen, and some accidents are unavoidable. You cannot invent anything which will save in such particular ways. Yeah? But I think that the good thing is to know these potential hazards, where they come from. Yeah? And I remember we ended up in Disney with at least 40 ways to die, and let's say 20 of them was easy to avoid, 10 was medium, and then the 10 was there's no way we can do anything about that. But we have to know about that. So then we signed the contracts with the performers, and they knew if they cross the line, they're gonna be seriously injured. Yeah. So where I'm heading that sometimes it's not so much about official, badge. Okay, I did this certification or that kind of certification, but it's about understanding the problem, and it's about facing the problem directly. You have to invent a way to be foolproof technology, and I just want to comment on what we discussed about this base jumping thing. Yeah, we know you can die, yeah, but because of that we improved the safety of the lower net significantly, and the 2 newest tunnels we are deploying right now gonna have the safety net which can absorb energy from that jumping out of the base jumping chamber. Yeah, so every problem is actually forcing you to find a solution, and when you find solution, again, you can use this solution as a new standard for your tunnels. I can say one new thing which we invented recently, and we actually built in the 2 latest patents. We don't have the doorstep anymore. So you as a flyers know that the major accidents can happen if you are flying and jumping into the waiting chamber, and you can hit this hard piece doorstep. Yeah, we don't have it anymore. And I think it's a major, and this is something I'm ready to share with you guys to make this industry safer. And all these things, if we do it together, because we focused it so many years for competition, oh, this is my patent, yeah, I'm gonna keep it for me, yeah. Nobody else can use it, and I can make a ton of money.
Okay, let's not go into the patent thing.
Yeah, but I'm looking to Simon, yeah.
Let's go into the safety and the future. Can I reply to what you were saying?
Sure, yeah.
Because I get a little bit excited.
And there's no 20 meters, by the way. So don't exaggerate.
It's a more.
No, it's 10 meters.
10 meters, okay. Anyway, it's funny that you say there is 40 ways of dying, 20 you could survive, 10 you can solve, and 10 you will die. That's a very bad ratio. Like, that's 25% of death.
No,
it's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke, but you have to know this, yeah?
But what I'm saying is, like, there is no one in this place that knows more than your company about open tunnels and safety in open tunnels. I think in closed tunnels, you're a little bit behind.
That's what you think, yeah.
Everybody can think. Why I think so is because I had, well, I'm not going to go into names. I had your top guy coming to my place to get rated, and he was your top guy. And when I was making examples the other day of
I comment again, because my top guys went also to ABM to learn from others.
Yes.
That's a different thing.
This is good.
That's not like we don't know anything. We want to learn what you know the better.
I didn't say you don't know anything. But I said, when Simon was saying that if we all united, it would be good, I don't want to pick in how good or bad they are your people in closed tunnels. I'm emphasizing that you in the open tunnels are the ones with the most experience. So let us learn how to do that in the open tunnels, and let us help you a little bit, because I know you know most of the things in closed tunnels. Wouldn't that be good for the industry, for the future, which is what we're talking about right now, the future of the industry?
Exactly.
Yeah, you think it's a good idea?
I think it's a really good idea, and it's a good we met, and we can learn from each other to make industry safer. That's objective.
So in 2 years' time, we're going to be sitting down here, and maybe there is something going on here?
I think so.
All right.
Okay. Okay, anyway, that's enough from me. I'm not going to go into anything else.
This might be a little bit of a far-off example, but I think that the automobile industry and road traffic administrations, at least in the civilized world, has done a pretty good job if you look at traffic safety, say, in the 1950s compared to now. And I think that the big shift in that was I think conceptually it was in the 60s, and then it was implemented in the 70s. And the United States were quite leading, as I remember it. There was a doctor called William Haddon who came up with a lot of provocative concepts, such as crashes without injuries, etc., which provoked a lot of people back then. But what it led to was, I mean, obviously crash cages, seat belts, etc., etc. And these, what they did was they looked at a set of different variables, such as the operator, the driver, which I think is what you talked about when you work with Disney. You tell the operator you have to be safe, you have to within certain limits. Then they looked at the environment, such as the road environment. You know, if you have laps, you know, if you hit into them, they should brake. They shouldn't just get the car and kill you. And for instance, and also make sure that you don't have big blocks of stones next to the road. It should be open, like any normal highway looked this day, but it didn't back then. And then they also looked at the technology, which in our case would be the tunnels. I've tried to implement a little bit of this when we're starting new, which is, as you will see, which is why we have a floor and it's padded. The reason I can tell you, because this is not streamed, is because I broke quite a few ribs in the prototype. And I thought, okay, we need padding here. And stuff like that. And I think in general, we're thinking about PADI, obviously, and stuff like that, but I think that also other industries that are very mature, such as the automobile industry and the road traffic administrations, can also perhaps give us some help as we're trying to become, as I perceive all of us want to be, as we become mature, as we become an actual industry, a real sport, maybe make it to the Olympics, maybe not, but something like that, etc.
May I comment?
Yeah.
I actually like very much your putting it to the car industry. And again, explaining you the point about 25% which you cannot avoid. If you go as a car 20 kilometers per hour and you crash the wall, there's no way anything will save you. No seat belt, no this airbag, nothing will save you. That's why even in car industry there is 20% or more, you will die, for sure.
Okay,
you got the point. But we have to
I don't want to fight with you, I want to be friends with you.
And then, yeah, we are friends, of course.
20% of less, it sounds like a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, but you have to learn, you have to know in car industry that if you're passing 60 kilometers per hour in a city and you crash the wall, in 60 kilometers you might have a chance, yeah? But in 120 you will not have a chance, yeah? And you have to explain this to drivers. Hey guys, don't drive 200 kilometers per hour in a city, yeah? Because you're gonna die. And same with instructors, same with coaches. You have to know the hazard.
Okay, I look at industry. It's like we fly people from the age of 3 to 103, which is a great number that you guys put, and I love it, and I always say it myself. We want to make this super safe, at least myself. I have a tunnel, and I want it to be 100% safe. I never want to have an accident. So every time I'm adding things into this tunnel that could cause an accident, for me, I don't think it's a good idea. I have done base jumping. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. It's a lot of fun. Adding a base jumping door into a wind tunnel, I think is an extra thing that could go wrong. So if we want to make this a sport very wide known, everybody to do it, try to take away the things that could actually cause the death, so it never happened. I can guarantee you, all the people that are here, I can guarantee you that in 30 years' time, if you keep using those doors, someone will die on them. I could bet you money on it. I could bet you whatever you want.
I have a question. You're very obsessed with the base door.
Don't give it to him. Don't.
You're very obsessed with the base door. I got it. We'll make it super safe. Trust me. But there are two other aspects that I think are very important safety features of the wind tunnel. And I would like to address every single one sitting here, why you don't implement it, why you do not consider the speed drop, for example, at the top of the flight chamber, why all your tunnels are so tiny, why people keep hitting the turning lanes up top.
It's not my case.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. Like I'm talking about 3 other manufacturers that are present here. Why? If you are so dedicated to safety, why you don't make your tunnels big enough so people stop doing this? Or why nobody is making a safety net that is deflecting next to the wall? While we all know that during the training, during the ABA training, during the TI training, this is one of the most likely scenarios for a student to go down next to the wall, probably head down. Why nobody is implementing such simple safety features, and we talk so much about it.
I think there is a guy in this room that actually hit the top turning veins, and he was in hospital for a while. The guy with the 2 hands up. What was the experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer this question. I think, Alberto, you put in safety systems for your examiners to try and counter. You put in safety systems for TIs.
Wait, 1 second. Can I say something?
Yeah.
The guy that is sitting over there is obviously a very experienced flyer. He's been on the sport for a very long time. He was the top guy from a tunnel, and everybody makes mistakes. I have to make mistakes myself. So when
very true. I'm pretty sure I probably spotted you before as well.
So.
But what I'm saying is, yes, there are risks inside the tunnel. There's risks throughout the walls. You can hit them during training students, absolutely. This is why IBA, TI, they put a lot of effort into training examiners to a standard so that you stop this risk. And this is why it's very important moving forward in the future as well, that people look at the standard of these examiners moving forward, not just when they've passed, but also in the future, to make sure they continue the level of safety so that accidents during these training courses don't happen. Yes, you have a wall in front of you. Yes, you're in a wind, so you can propel into that wall. But you also have someone there trained enough to know when those types of things can happen and to be in the correct place and doing the correct thing and saying the correct things to make sure that that isn't a risk which is likely to ever occur.
Was your accident avoidable?
100%. I can give you loads of reasons of how that could have been avoided. We can talk about it if you wish.
Would it have been avoidable if you were flying in some other technology? I have no idea what technology you were
Okay, yes.
Let's not mention names.
Okay.
To mention the name, but
The-
like if it would have been some other technology.
Okay, the answer is yes.
So it
Absolutely.
is possible to avoid accidents like this, building different tunnels.
Absolutely, and I think you should always look at your risk and figure out how you can avoid those risks from happening. Sometimes that does mean changing the technology, absolutely, because there's some situations where sticking a person there saying don't do that is definitely not going to avoid that risk. There's still definitely the possibility that you can find yourself in a situation where you're going to end up very injured, like myself.
So, following your experience, with your experience, like, how many tunnels do you think are built neglecting, features like this?
Most. If I'm being very, very honest, there are many, many things within the industry that are potential hazards, and if you were to go into the majority of tunnels and look at every single aspect, you will absolutely find something that could be changed to mitigate the risks.
If I can react on you actually and those comments, I will use this proximity to the car business. Actually, I have a car which can go really faster than I would like to, and I will never use it. Not only because it's possible, I will just not use it because there is a risk of death. So I think there is combination of the rules actually which should be issued. There is some request on the manufacturers, and there is some request from the operators. Someone asking, and some of those requests are actually not compatible. So then we have to solve it in the way of the operational rules or the standards of safety measures and other stuff. So I think that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the accidents we're referring to are happening on a regular training speeds. Of course, not for the first timers, but for the sportsmen, regular training speeds.
I don't know this history actually. The details.
It does happen. Like, I've hit the turning veins, and it's not nice. But it's what you're saying is like, why don't we try to build things? Because mistakes can happen. I learned this lesson when I used to work with Paul Meyer at Bodyfly, and we had this guy, I'm not going to say the name. He was one of the smartest guys that I know. And he left this platform out, and the whole tunnel blew up. Paul Meyer almost wanted to kill us, and so on. And I learned there that people, no matter how, because they can be tired, they could be hungover, they could not slept the night before, they can make mistakes. So if we can all build things that even if you make a mistake, nothing happens, like what he was saying, that would be brilliant. There is another thing, maybe I'm a little bit too obsessed with safety. In our tunnel, we implemented maybe I'm a little bit obsessed. We implemented some lasers and some lights, so if you go up 10 meters, the tunnel turns in red, and you get tunnel time taken away if you're an instructor. If you're a customer, you get pulled out and you get told off. Once again, to try to avoid them, because when they're at the top, our tunnel is pretty high. There is almost 20 meters tunnel. If you're at the top and there is a shutdown, it doesn't matter if you have carbon fiber plates, metal plates, you're going to hurt yourself a lot. And if you're a belly flyer and you... Sorry.
I respect your safety, I respect the level of safety you're trying to keep. I completely agree with everything you're saying except this. You can build a better tunnel that can get shut down and you jump after it's shut down and you're gonna land safe. We're gonna...
How?
We met on Lux Fly in about a month and we try.
I'm gonna copy it if I see it, you know that.
Yes, okay. We're gonna do it. But anyway, you can build a tunnel safe enough for that.
But this is fantastic that companies like you are actually taking this safety into consideration so much, and you're trying to develop and come up with new things that will make the whole thing safe. Maybe this base jumping door, you come up with a way that is safe, and then it will be the coolest toy in Earth. A base jumping door that doesn't have not even 1% of chance that it will go wrong.
Oh, there is always a percentage.
Well, then I don't like it.
Of course. Look, there is a percentage that something can go wrong as soon as you get in the airflow. Seriously, exact same second, there is a chance that something gonna go out of control. If everything seems under control, you're not going fast enough.
Okay. But this is good. This is how I take my personal life.
But there is so much we can do, and as a manufacturers, I think like the biggest problem of the industry these days is that we're trying to chase the operators that are trying to, to cut short everywhere. And furthermore, the manufacturers are trying to give a better offer. And if we say it straight, like manufacturers are saving on safety because they're trying to, sell a little bit cheaper tunnels. I think this there is nothing to discuss. It's just a point to reconsider. Maybe we should not give up so much safety. Maybe you make your tunnels a little bigger, a little better, a little safer. Just do it.
I think that's, sorry, I'm talking too much. But I think, I completely agree with you, but we're going back to the point. Before, I've seen tunnels where they actually start running them without a driver, without a spotter. The spotter walks in, is doing the coaching, and he comes out, changes the speed, goes in.
With operators, that's another thing, that we need to bring all the operators to the table. Why we don't have them? Because every single topic that has been discussed on the last 9 panels, it should involve operators, because they're inseparable from this industry. This industry is driven by 3 factors. Sports organizations, which are organizing things that are responsible to get this sport to the public. Manufacturers, our responsibility is safety of everyone involved and better tools for the operators. And operators who are making the most amount of profit, who has the most driving force out of everyone in this industry altogether, starting with you.
Well, you're right, but once again, I think, for example, they have the IBA, they are very particular about always having your spotter, your coach, and this and that. So maybe his tunnels, I will believe, is one of the safest. There's a couple of things that will make it slightly safer, but the personnel they have, the way they have always someone on the door, the way they're always tracking all those things, makes it much safer than probably the safest tunnel run by guys that go, okay, we don't need a spotter because we're going to save a salary there, and it's a mix of everything, I guess, at the end of the day.
We have Summit to actually bring all the counterparts that normally sitting in their offices and talking over email.
Yeah, we have a comment. We have a comment here from the floor. Would you identify yourself?
Hello, my name is Anna, and nobody knows me here. That's okay. I've been your target audience for the past 4 years, and for the past 2 years and a half, I've been mystery shopper. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's someone who goes into a company, into a store, and buys something just for the goal of seeing how that shop works, that company works, and I've been doing this for my own reasons and my own research, and I found some very interesting conclusions that I think you should know, because this could help the industry move a little bit forward. So, Andre, answering your question, what's going on at the end of the day, everything's about money. Most manufacturers are also investors and operators are at the same time. In some cases, not all the time, but in some cases. And I see a huge gap between what's going on in the American industry with iFly and Europe, and where we are in Europe, which is where I come from, worried about how can we cut all these costs. We're worried about personnel, we're worried about electricity. They're focusing on customer relationship, building this synergy with other companies that could create a long-term relationship with the customers, and that's creating and generating income for a very long time. So what I see on the other hand, it's that we blame that, manufacturers are very expensive. Well, are they? Or what is happening that we're doing wrong? And I find that sometimes what we are doing wrong, or some operators are doing wrong, it's that they have a very poor management. we need to, or you need to look inside your company and ask yourself, what are we doing wrong? What's happening? Where are we spending the money that is not worth it? And where are we spending the money and it's really generating that income? Because it's what I just said, at the end of the day, we want the return of the investment as fast as possible. And I would like to say also that if we are also worried about safety, and I think Patrice said it yesterday, why don't we implement drug control in our tunnels? Because we know we come from an industry that's like a great, cool industry, and everybody's flying, and everybody's very happy and likes to party, but that's safety on the tunnel. And that could really damage our image today and in the future, and that could be very important to create a system that works for all of us.
I think.
So that's it.
I think you have a point.
Who you are again, so we know for the future?
What did she say?
No,
Why don't we implement drop tests in the
My name
tunnels?
is Ana Miravalles.
Yeah,
we do.
Yes.
So, Anna, you're involved with a venture in the
Fair.
Canary Islands, is that right? Yeah.
No, for the customers, we will go out of business. No, Anna, I think Anna is right. It's something we should do, implement. IBA already does it. I didn't know, but it makes complete sense. And luckily, we are in an industry where the skydivers, if we did tests, probably half of the staff of the tunnels will have to get fired. But it's something that we should definitely take the lead of what the IBA does. I can't say much about this topic, to be honest. You're right.
Well, America does a lot of drug testing in most companies. So there's a standard drug testing. And certainly on hire, you always get drug tested. You have to, before you even go so you have to turn up somewhere within X amount of hours and you get drug tested. And then there's a random drug testing program amongst staff. I'm not sure how frequent it is, but it is random. And but that's a big thing in America. And mystery shopping is another thing that we definitely do a lot of. And we hire a firm to come mystery shop all of our tunnels, and they do so many per month every tunnel. So,
do you do the drug testing in Europe as well?
No, we don't. No, I don't think we do.
We have a comment from Rob here.
Back to synergy, back to the future. You guys brought up coaching. Well, Skydiving University, our key focus of why we created it is coaching. And so obviously this is from my heart. I think coaching happening in the tunnels is a good thing. You're talking about the rates. I think the rates are demanded or paid out appropriately to the coaches that deserve it. I think coaches that try to match rates from certain great athletes and coaches and try to match our rates is inappropriate. I agree. 50 euros I would never take. So I think it's got to do with the person and the quality of the coaching. And I've always promoted from day one in Skydiving University that the quality is worth the money. So if you got somebody that's a superstar that can create the results, then please let's not criticize or be judgmental on that person's rates. Now, however, future for the wind tunnels. Let's look at Skydive to Land. Skydive to Land is not a drop zone that focuses on tandem. Maybe some of you don't know that. Bob Hallett has a different philosophy. He wants it to be a skydiving drop zone equal for all disciplines. And so tandem is obviously there, but he doesn't want to see it get too large. So how does Skydive to Land exist? Why do we have the airplanes that we have and continue to operate 365 days a year? Because we have the most awesome coaches in the world in one place. And people come to Skydive to Land because they want coaching from those people, whether it's Fly for Life, whether it's Flight One, whether it's Skydive University, whether it's Solly Williams. They're coming to us and paying us the money and skydiving those airplanes because of the quality of coaching. Maybe in the future, in the tunnel models, you might want to consider something similar. And I think Paraclete has it. Kirk Werner and some of the staff there are pretty hot coaches. You know, they're all pretty big champions. And a lot of people go to Paraclete, not just because it's a 16 and a half foot tunnel. They're going to Paraclete because they're getting awesome coaches and it's worth the money. And I can tell you, when I hire Kirk, even though he's the manager of the tunnel, he doesn't take 50 euros. So I'm just letting you know in your own models, maybe you want to invite some coaches in or breed some coaches that are superstars, because that's going to bring more people to your tunnel. Not just the first-time customers, but those repeat customers that buy lots of hours and maybe fly over time. Right? It's just thought.
Thank you, Rob. And Anne, we have a comment from Anne.
Can we reply to him?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody should charge 50 euros for the coaching, of course not. What I don't think is normal, and definitely there is coaches that have been very well formed and they have a lot of years of experience and they do charge 200 and 300 euros, and I completely understand. What I don't understand is that someone that has just been on the industry for a couple of months has to charge 200 euros. When you get a, like I said before, you get a doctor that has done 10 years of studying and he gets 40 euros. So
that would be my point as well, Rob, is that, you know, when Greg Crozier goes around Australia as a world champion, etc., then of course he's worth the money. 100% tunnel camps and bringing external coaches in is really important. It's when you've got your own coaches who think it's their God-given right to be an employee, but then to go out and work and associate their rates with the same as these quality coaches who are world champions or whatever, and think that they should charge the same rate when they've still got a secure job. And the tunnel industry is in danger of killing itself by allowing its own staff to hire the same facilities and take their own customers. It's a delicate balance. It's a really delicate balance.
I have spent the last 12 years in a sport where the coaches are of an eminence that you will not believe. If you think it's a lot, 300 euros, double that, or even more, and you get to an hourly rate of a coach in dance sport. It's an open market. You cannot really control it, but you can stop abuse, and you have to stop abuse. I mean, as you said, your own employee running a side business.
I think it's the sector we were talking about is not
a no-no.
Not the people who demand the price out of quality.
The most important thing, and that really killed dance sport. These coaches, okay, they become really very dominant in the structure of a federation, in everything. It's a coach, this, that, and ultimately in dance sport, they are going to be the ones judging. And that led to a lot of abuse, to a lot of manipulation in a sport that really moved a considerable amount of money over many years, and nobody really knew about it. And that's the only, my advice to your organization and your companies as an operator, keep an eye on it. But other than that, it's free market. And if somebody deserves an hourly rate of 500, yeah, he deserves it.
We'll come back to you, Anna. Okay, you're going to pick up on that, Andrew.
Well, I'm, as been told before, like I have experience with a whole bunch of different sports, different communities, and on different levels of development. And I do have this feeling that there are a lot of decisions in this sport. I'm struggling to find a word, but sorry, I'm Russian. I'm going to make an excuse now. I do sense some certain greed among every single group of participants, and I think this might be like the problem of the sport. I mean, I understand, like it takes a lot of money to build a tunnel, right? It takes a lot of money to operate, and like this whole thing involves a lot of money. And therefore, like you are trying to make it back, and then you start tightening up the bolts here and there, and like you are trying to squeeze money pretty much from every single thing. And this keeps our community this size. Like I want to say again that the sport and the industry is in quantities. To get these quantities, we need to loosen up just a little bit, every single one. We need to loosen up the manufacturers, we need to loosen up the coaches, we need to loosen up the sportsmen, and we need to give them opportunity to bring more people in. Like, I don't get this part about like tightening bolts for the coaches, like particularly like not letting coaches coach. Just, they are your marketers, in my opinion. They are your marketers. Those are who are bringing more sportsmen to you, and sportsmen are going to bring more first-timers to you. So coaching for me has always been a dignity of coaches. And when you think about other sports, really, what coach worth? It's going to be a market price. It's like any other thing on the market. Really, your coach is worth the value that it gives to your time. Right? You're going to have cheaper time, like it's going to go down. But really, stop trying to regulate it and give opportunity to people to work and to grow and to expand. We're going to get the numbers. Like, let's get over these few thousand people. And it's going to happen by itself. We're going to have Google paying for everything.
You know, one point I would make is that in many other sports, because you were talking about other sports, you're talking about sports that are not privately operated, and you do have, you know, public authorities that have built the facilities and operate them. So, you know, it's not, as you were just pointing out, it's not exactly the same playing field. But Anne, you had a point to make.
I just, sorry, I know I've been talking too much the last couple of days. It was something, you know, it's really clear. You know, we've got a bunch of very, very committed, you know, very intelligent manufacturers who are working as hard as possible to make things as safe as possible. I mean, that's obviously really clear. But, you know, there's this massive elephant in the room. We've got, anybody can buy a tunnel and start working it. So we've got a whole bunch of the potential to have tunnel operators who can have all of that and can still have very unsafe businesses. They buy a tunnel and they're not obligated to train their staff in a certain way. They can operate in any way, shape or form, let anybody in the tunnel who they decide, and they can put anything in the tunnel that's unsafe. I've seen some of that myself. And we can do as much as we want as an industry, but maybe there should be some basic safety standards that the manufacturers have to put in place, and a minimum level of safety before a tunnel operator, when they buy the tunnel. It's not just about paying the money for the tunnel. I mean, I know some technologies do it much more than others, but before you can actually open a tunnel, maybe should be an insistence of a basic set of safety standards that you as an operator must put in place.
I mean, they are here.
Before you can actually open your doors to the public. That's what I'm just saying.
But they are here.
No, but that's what you were talking about, Simon.
For 10 years ago. It's already here. It's just up to us to come, pick it up, enforce it, and actually have that.
If we could, friends, because we're starting to run out of time, if we could just go through the guests that we have on the stage for 1 minute to sum up, and then we can continue the conversation outside and continue the conversation through the rest of the day. Okay? So we just have one quick pass along the panel of what you take away as being the main points. Okay? All right, you'll get your thoughts together. It's not fair, but that's okay. Anton is a clear thing. I know, he wants to hear everybody else.
That's good. Anton, you're telling him what to do, right?
Anton, you go first. Sorry.
All right, I'll do it in less than 1 minute. Grassroots, make it a real sport. If possible, make the tunnels not a huge stadium arena. That's impossible, but so that people can actually be there, sit there, watch there. The Madison Square Garden idea is far-fetched, but not such a bad vision to have. Maybe one step on that way is sort of the detour of making a lot of small tunnels that could be cheap, that kids or someone can get started in it with.
Good summary. Yeah, well, of course, the obvious things that we discussed these days, but I also take away the safety thing. Of course, we're just the aerodynamic designers, but still there might be things that also we could do that that could improve safety.
Okay, so of course, I don't like to repeat this safety that was, mentioned several times. I think what is missing and what is the future as well is, to bring more people and audience into the wind tunnel business and flying inside, body flying, which could help a lot of things. Most of them were mentioned, but I think new technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, yesterday it was mentioned, that's actually something what I see as the future, which can make these things a bit newer and also bring the people for the repeating visitors.
Yeah, I think maybe we went a little bit wrong pace, yeah, and then we start to, especially you guys start to argue which technology is better, yeah. We are not here this is not a sales pitch. This is something we have to, start maybe some new way of cooperation to reconsider how we cooperate as manufacturers. You have your features, and I can talk with you for hours and argue maybe mine are better. Yeah, so that's not the case here. I think that the outcome of this conversation is how we can talk on the same table and consider maybe you have such a feature that everybody wants. Or I have something that everybody wants, yeah. So the point here is how we can make it implemented to all of industry. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, I'm actually very happy that it's like when Simon said at the beginning, we were not sure why we were coming here, and after we are finishing, I'm realizing what we came here is to grow the whole sport. Like just with the whole thing that everybody's been talking. A lot of us, me, myself, the first one, we're going to go back home thinking, wait a minute, I got to change this, I got to do this, I got to look into this. So I think we should give an applause to that guy that has organized the whole thing, because we have all taken a lot from this, and it's been thanks to you.
Hard to follow. But I would say there's no silver bullet here. There's no magic bullet. It's a combination of all kinds of things. I was saying to somebody yesterday that with wind tunnels today, it's like cars. There's no bad cars around anymore. They're all of a standard. And it's exactly the same with every wind tunnel made around here. They're all good. Now you can talk... Raise the standard. I'm not saying that we shouldn't raise the standard. I'm just saying there's no bad wind tunnels. So at the moment, there's no bad wind tunnels. So there is a whole place to play in safety, not just of the equipment. Most of the safety is going to be through the operators, not through the equipment. The equipment is not unsafe at the moment. Sure, can it be improved? Everything can always be improved and developed. But most of the development will come through the operators. And the big thing for me is, how do we grow the sport? So we take everybody's opinions that we've heard today, we put it into the mixing pot. But again, I would just say there's no silver bullet.
Oh, wow. Finally, I was trying to respond this moment. I think we got a general outline of, if it was a revelation for you, what we're here for, I don't know. I knew that from first actually.
You were the only one putting your hand up. So for me,
I was surprised that everybody overlooked it. I think Roland was very clear with all the messages that he was putting out before the summit. But since we're missing a very big part of the community here, like I can talk only about the manufacturers. Like I do really see a big problem as a lack of education. I mean, like when it comes to technologies and like safety standards, like we do not communicate. Operators communicate separately to each one of us, and they're bargaining each one of us. They're like hiding, or like sometimes, using each other's opinions, but really no one is communicating all together. So for us as manufacturers, I do really think that we should that we should help organizations like Tunnel Instructor International. I do respect the ABA, but I just personally believe that IBA is a little bit tailored to your business particularly, while Alberto done work trying to give a tool to all other tunnels existing, and I think this is what we should enforce. And also it would be, I think it will be very beneficial for everybody if we will be able to educate the customers, our customers, operators, and flyers, their customers, flyers, what our tunnels are, and maybe like come up with some certain United certification or something like this, when we have somebody from the side coming and telling us what we can do better. This is why we had Tunnel Instructor in our tunnel earlier last year, so they can actually just like look through all the things and say what we can do better. And I think we should be all doing it. I think.
Okay. Now, thank you very much. Thank you for the compliment. It was the elephant round I expected it to be. I think a lot of things got covered. And we also kind of said, well, this is not a sales pitch. This is it's an open debate and looking at the bigger picture and on emphasis on common ground. Now this afternoon from 14:15, we're going to have what I call the breakout sessions, the workshops, God knows what. It changed a little bit of format as we went along. You were my initial partners as panelists, because I very deliberately said, let's make it the manufacturers, not the operators, because I think that's where the process starts. The operators can come in later. And you were the first ones to be given the opportunity, 15 minutes. You could this afternoon do whatever you want in terms of presenting your company, your philosophy, your product. Some of you have told me, yes, I will do it. I know that our friend Anton is going to show something that not many of us have seen yet. I know you're going to do something for Tunneltech, yes. I mean, you changed the person presenting a few times, but and if any of you, Jan, you sent us a video. If you want that to be shown, you make a few comments. We could do that. I will now establish an order for this whole section of our summit. We have probably potential of up to about 10, 12 presentations. I have some very interesting things in terms of ONG's social responsibility, because I think that's also a key element in any business these days. We had a bunch of virtual reality companies saying, hey, we're going to be there. Yes, we want to present. Now, I think over the last 2 weeks, I had two calling up. They were not ready to present yet. It's probably also a good indication how fast the development in this particular sector. But as I said now, if you want to show something, present something, up to a maximum 15 minutes, that will be possible in the afternoon, starting at 2 o'clock or 2:15, all depending on how many we will have in the end. Everybody else out there that has been advising us that they will do something, I mean, that's Vince, you're going to do something, and quite a few others. And then we're going to wrap up with a part of the summit where the dynamics change, and it's sales pitch after sales pitch, or at least presentation, not with any type of real purpose other than acquainting you with whatever it is that they will acquaint you with. So in terms of the summit itself, Jay and I will start working on this session 10, where we, between all of us here, would like to draft a vision statement. At this vision statement, we would then basically make public and with media and the whole shebang, and hopefully it's going to go out and inspire the world. So this is the remaining program of this summit. Thank you very much once again for your help in making this happen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it mine or yours?
Yours.
Hope it will be warm.